The Stone Age. In the Stone Age, wealth was measured in terms of survival capabilities and essential resources. To be considered rich, one needed an abundance of food, tools, and materials for shelter and clothing. These materials mainly consisted of wood, animal pelts, organic material like large leaves, sticks, and dirt. Skills in hunting, gathering, and tool-making were invaluable. Forming strong social bonds and alliances within one's tribe or community was crucial for enhancing access to resources and ensuring collective security. The more friends one had, the more potential help and protection they could rely on in times of danger, which was frequent in the Stone Age. Accumulating and managing resources such as animal hides for clothing, flint for tools, and maintaining a steady food supply through effective hunting and foraging were keys to thriving. Survival was synonymous with wealth. Having the resources to make it through each day meant one was well off. There wasn't necessarily coinage in the early Stone Age, and the exact origin of money remains unclear. However, during this period, possessing practical skills and having access to essential life-enabling resources was the pinnacle of wealth. If you had a cozy cave to call home, a few pelts to keep warm, basic flint and obsidian tools for hunting small animals, and a good group of friends, you were set and considered wealthy. Imagine it now. No phones in sight, just you and your closest friends wearing simple loincloths, living in the moment. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? The Bronze Age. The Bronze Age took place between 3300 BC and 1200 BC and marked a significant leap in civilization for several reasons, most notably the production of bronze. While short compared to the Stone Age, which lasted millions of years, the Bronze Age saw significant technological advancements that propelled society forward. Bronze, an alloy made by melting down tin with a larger amount of copper, was easy to produce and readily available. The production of this alloy and the tools made from it allowed for rapid development in both agriculture and warfare. So, what did it mean to be rich during the Bronze Age, and how was wealth measured? During this time, wealth became associated with the control and production of bronze. Being rich meant having access to these metal ores and the knowledge to craft weapons, tools, and ornaments. Trade also became more prominent, so establishing strong trade networks and engaging in commerce were crucial for improving one's wealth. These were some of the earliest economies ever. Additionally, owning agricultural land and livestock, which were crucial for food and trade, signified wealth. For almost the first time, social status also played a role in one's wealth, with leaders often amassing wealth through tribal control over resources. What did it look like to be rich? During the Bronze Age, some of the earliest civilizations emerged, leading to villages and larger communities living in one place. If you were wealthy, you likely had a nicer or larger place, possibly in a prime location near water or farmland. Wealthy individuals also had irrigation systems to bring water to their crops, demonstrating their control over agriculture. Imagine you and your friends wearing more animal pelts in a larger community, living in a bigger mud hut made with wood and nicer materials. You're all sitting around the forge, making bronze swords and other tools. In ancient Sumeria, grain was one of the earliest known currencies, used for trade alongside mysterious clay tokens, suspected to serve as a means of exchange. As the Bronze Age continued, silver became a popular currency, followed by gold. So, in the Bronze Age, if you had social status, access to land, agriculture, and animals, a prime piece of real estate, a steady supply of bronze, and knowledge of tool making, you were well off. Additionally, a large supply of silver and gold made you truly rich. The Iron Age is a fascinating era because it wasn't simply a result of pure evolution and innovation. Up until this point, progress might seem linear, but that's not the case. Near the end of the Bronze Age, several significant factors led to a huge decline in production, literacy, trade routes, wealth, and overall human progress. The transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age was considered a dark time for humanity. The Bronze Age was a 2 steps forward, 1 step back situation, and the Iron Age was almost like a redo, but with iron as the new and stronger metal. Despite the setbacks, technological advancements happened quicker during the Iron Age, leading to more rapid human evolution. Wealth in the Iron Age wasn't much different from wealth in the Bronze Age, as many of the same customs and traditions persisted, and the same means of production and wealth accumulation were in play. In the Iron Age, wealth was closely tied to the possession and production of iron. Mastery of ironworking techniques to create durable tools and weapons provided a significant advantage. Rich individuals or communities controlled iron deposits and forges, facilitating trade and enhancing military strength within their communities or even with others. Agricultural advancements continued to be important, so owning and controlling fertile land and livestock remained prominent signs of wealth. Power and influence were often consolidated through warfare and alliances, with wealthy individuals holding positions of authority and accumulating wealth through tribute and trade. The Iron Age still didn't have coinage. Much wealth was held in gold nuggets, gold sheets, gold ornaments, and gold jewelry. Fertile land, livestock, access to iron production, and military power were key indicators of wealth and influence. The medieval era, aka the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages. This era took place immediately after the fall of the Roman Empire, beginning in 476 AD and lasting roughly until 1400 AD. During this time, wealth became more multifaceted and centralized around connections with those in power. Besides the king and other royalty, the wealthiest members of medieval society were the nobility and merchants. The richest merchants were those engaged in long-distance trade, specifically of luxury goods such as spices, silk, and precious metals, all of which were extreme signs of wealth. Although the levels of wealth among nobles varied significantly, the richest nobles were those who controlled the most land and had the closest connections to the monarch. Regardless of whether one was a noble or a merchant, life at the top was quite similar. These individuals had their own castles, fully staffed with servants. They owned large estates and farms maintained by peasants and serfs. They possessed luxury goods, such as expensive dyes, luxurious silk clothing, gold jewelry, and had access to an almost unlimited supply of food and various forms of entertainment. Additionally, the wealthiest in society had access to great education, which was still a rarity for the majority of the population. This included reading, writing, literature, and other scholarly texts. If you were rich during this time period, you had the opportunity to live a life of leisure and luxury. However, the wealth gap during the Middle Ages was severe, and not everyone enjoyed such a lifestyle. Despite their wealth, the rich were not immune to the challenges of the time, such as disease, famine, and war. Imagine hanging out with your friends in a castle lit by torches, being served a leg of lamb by your servant, and drinking from gem-encrusted solid gold goblets. You all cheers and spill wine on your expensive silk shirts, but you don't care because you're so rich. You have a jester in a silly hat come and perform for you, and then you go to bed and do it all again the next day. Seems pretty cool, right? But let's move on. The early modern era. We're getting extremely close to the modern era, but we're not quite there yet. We're currently in the early modern era, which spans roughly from 1500 AD to 1800 AD. This period is one of the most influential in shaping the structure of the world we live in today. Let me explain. In the early modern era, wealth was driven by exploration, trade, and colonization. Nations and individuals who invested in voyages reaped enormous profits from new trade routes and resources. Merchants and bankers accumulated wealth through the global trade of goods like spices, textiles, and precious metals. The rise of capitalism and the establishment of joint stock companies allowed for the pooling of resources and the sharing of risks and rewards. Owning land and engaging in agriculture remained important, but the growing influence of commerce, finance, and manufacturing marked a significant shift in how wealth was perceived and earned. Up until this point, becoming rich often meant owning a cow, some land, and maybe a few pieces of silver, along with having the right connections. But as we entered the early modern era, things changed. We saw early globalization, early capitalism, early colonization, and the foundations for the society we live in today. This was a pretty influential and important 300-year period. So, what did it look like to be rich in the early modern era? In many ways, it was more of the same. Bigger houses, more loot, more money, more connections, more food, more entertainment, bigger boats, and more security. The biggest difference was the means of accumulating these resources. If you were the type of person going on conquests or voyages, your life was extremely hectic, spending months or even years at sea with the risk of coming home empty-handed, or not coming home at all. It was like playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag in real life. But, was everything sunshine and rainbows? Definitely not. There were significant risks and challenges. However, being rich was pretty awesome almost all the time. In the early modern era, we saw for almost the first time how being wealthy began to shift fundamentally. The modern era. And just like that, we've gone from the Stone Age to the modern day. The modern era is kind of blended into the early modern era, so there's no exact start date, but for the sake of this video, we'll consider it from 1800 until the present day. In the modern era, wealth has been increasingly associated with industrialization, innovation, and finance. The Industrial Revolution transformed economies, creating vast fortunes for those who owned factories, mines, and railways. In the contemporary world, wealth is often derived from investments in technology, real estate, and financial markets. Entrepreneurs and business owners who innovate and scale their businesses can achieve substantial wealth. Education and knowledge have become critical assets, and advanced degrees and specialized skills open doors to lucrative careers. Globalization and digital technologies such as the internet have further expanded opportunities for wealth creation across diverse sectors and regions. I would say that the world we live in today is pretty great. We enjoy a lot of modern luxuries and have many amazing opportunities right at our fingertips. Never before has the world been so decentralized, meaning anyone has the opportunity to do great things. In the past, if you were a serf or a peasant working on a noble's farm, you had almost zero chance of being anything more than that. In the modern day, especially in the present day, the number of opportunities to get wealthy, thanks to the internet, is almost limitless. Even at the beginning of the modern era, near the Industrial Revolution, opportunities were starting to present themselves everywhere. Obviously, we got off to a rough start with extreme amounts of child labor, including chimney sweeps, factory workers, and a lot of horrible stuff that definitely wasn't great but made a lot of people rich. So, what does it look like to be rich in the modern day? Fortunately, I don't think I have to paint too much of a crazy picture for you guys. Honestly, in the modern day, wealth is really what you make of it because of the vast amount of opportunities. It can be whatever you want it to be. If you have enough money to sustain yourself, then your wealth could look like living in a van that you own and having enough money coming in on a monthly basis to maintain your lifestyle. Or it could look like the biggest mansion full of the craziest watches and cars and gold doubloons.